This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucie Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Okay, before we get started, check out nectargrowth.com. nectargrowth.com. It's free to join, but not for long. Nectar is an extension of the roller coaster. It's where you can start your own journey of self-exploration and growth. In Nectar, you'll find different topics of interest, daily blogs, affirmations, journal prompts, and you can connect with some of the fantastic coaches that have been on the roller coaster. Soon, we'll be adding videos, meditations, live discussions, and events. Our signature course is a journey of self-improvement, and it's valued at $397. But once you join, it's available to you at no cost. So if you're feeling stuck, if you feel like you need to change and not sure where to start with Nectar Growth Network. Come join us. You know you're worth it. Now, let's get on with today's show. I decided to take this week off from my day job. My goal was to get ahead. Get ahead with scheduling podcasts and planning social media. But by the end of Monday, I realized that I had completely overestimated how much I could get accomplished in a day, and I started to feel overwhelmed. My mind started to wander. If I could just get X, Y, and Z done, then I'll feel like I can exhale. And then judgment started to creep in. I pushed myself. I need to have more focus, push harder, get more done. I was starting to get in a bit of a bad place. Luckily, I had week number 2 of Thrive with Jill Coit. If you missed episode 136, I shared that I'm taking a 3-part online course, and you may remember Jill from episode 17. This week's lesson was all about inspired action. We dove into reflecting how we are currently feeling. My feelings from the day before popped into my head. Frustration, overwhelm, and judgment. I explored my feelings, but my thoughts kept lingering around how I thought that taking a week off would give me more time. But it actually ended up feeling the pressure of overwhelm. I could also feel in my body how these thoughts were bringing me down. Our feelings are clues to our subconscious minds. But through habit and social conditioning, we often suppress or ignore our feelings. We do things like repeatedly saying that we're fine and numbing. While this may work in the short term, those feelings, they will bubble up and likely when we least expect it. Instead, though, we can become curious and dive into our emotions. So I started to think about how I wanted to feel. If I had more time, cleared my to-do list, and got ahead of the game, how would I feel? Well, there are 4 basic emotions that everything else stems from: happiness, sadness, fear, and anger. And I would wager that at the core, all anyone wants is to just be happy. Sure, we can break it down into more descriptive words such as excited, blissful, glad, and content. But they all pretty much relate to happiness. But is perpetual happiness an unattainable dream, a myth? Is it a bag of lies that society dangles in front of us? That's not what I choose to believe. But I also believe that the expectation that we're always going to be happy is part of the problem. You see, our universe is built on balance and the dualism of yin and yang, positive and negative, male and female energies. We're all living the human experience, and part of that involves feeling a wide range of emotions. So with happiness, we will inevitably feel sadness. And it's our resiliency that determines how we bounce back from sadness and avoid it from becoming a deeper wound of despair. It's said that we experience depression when we're living in the past. We experience anxiety when we're living in the future. So by default, happiness is obtained by living in the now. Hinging happiness on future events pushes it from being an internal emotion by seeking external influences to give us that happiness. And that's where happiness becomes the unattainable dream and will leave us forever chasing something. Like attracts like. And when we focus on what we don't have and tether happiness to a future event, our energy vibrates at a much lower level. And without knowing it, we end up attracting more of the same. We draw into our lives the things that match the energy that we're putting out. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, will be what you're attracting. Have you ever heard the saying, misery loves company? No one wants to be unhappy, but life is a roller coaster. It has twists and turns, ups and downs, and it comes down to how we choose to look at the challenges and obstacles. To shift your energy, you need to start by shifting your mindset. I want to share a parable about two wolves. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. He said, "A fight is going on inside me. It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, lies, false pride, and ego." He continues, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every other person too." The grandson thought for a minute, and then he asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." To shift my mindset, I started to feed the good wolf. I chose to feel happiness now. I chose to stop feeling overwhelmed by my to-do list, and I started to focus on my whys. I focused on everything that I have and what I've already manifested. I turned overwhelm into the fuel that I needed to propel me forward. My to-do list was no longer a list of tasks. It became my list of inspired actions. And while it's Friday, the end of my vacation, and I still have just as much to do on my list, but I'm lighter, freer. I'm happy. Which wolf will you feed this week? Thank you for inviting me to join you today. Coming up next week, we have episode 142 with Lois Letchfield. And if you have a child with a learning disability, this is going to be an episode you're going to want to listen to. 143, Deborah Lynn shares a really interesting story, sort of along the lines of Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Episode 144, Success Left a Clue with Robert Riopel. 145, How to Heal with Dr. Debbie Sibler. Episode 146 will actually be released on Saturday, which is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And in that episode, a friend will be sharing their story of being in New York City watching the towers collapse. Remember, your support of the roller coaster is always appreciated. If you can, leave a rating or review. It will help me reach more people. And share this episode and Nectar with your friends and family. All of the links are in the show notes. And until next time, I'm sending you my virtually distant hugs. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life